Welcome back, you beautiful disaster. You magnificent wreckage that somehow keeps standing when the physics say you should have collapsed years ago. There's something happening to you right now, and I need you to pay attention. Not the surface level attention you give to everything else. The deep kind. The kind that makes your stomach drop, because you know I'm about to say something that can't be unsaid. Before we go further, if this resonates with something deep inside you, hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you isn't for everyone. But if you're still here, if you've made it this far, then you're exactly who needs to hear this. Drop a comment and tell me you're ready. Just one word, ready. Let's see who's really paying attention. They've been watching you differently lately, haven't they? Not with curiosity, not with judgment, with something else. Something that looks like concern but feels like fear. The way someone watches a storm cloud that's forming too fast, too close, with colors that aren't supposed to exist in nature. Here's what they won't say to your face. What they whisper when you leave the room. What keeps them checking their phones to see if you've posted anything, even though they claim they don't care about you anymore. You're not healing. You're not recovering. You're not getting better in any way they understand. You're transforming into something their psychology textbooks don't have chapters about. Something their self-help books can't diagnose. Something their therapy sessions weren't designed to handle. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about gratitude journals or meditation apps or drinking enough water. This is about the fact that something fundamental in your operating system has been rewritten, and the new code is running programs they don't have access to. You remember those years, don't you? When you disappeared into yourself, when you'd sit there physically present but mentally somewhere else entirely. They thought you were depressed. They thought you were avoiding life. They had no idea you were downloading. They didn't know that every hour of that silence was you absorbing information from sources they don't believe exist. You weren't broken. You were buffering. You were processing. You were integrating data that would take them lifetimes to understand. And you were doing it in real time, while they thought you were just going through a phase. Let me tell you what really happened during those dark years. While you believed you were barely surviving, while you thought you were losing yourself piece by piece, you were actually being reconstructed. Every person who betrayed you wasn't taking something from you. They were giving you knowledge. Every heartbreak wasn't destroying you. It was teaching you the architecture of pain so you'd recognize it in others before they could weaponize it against you. Every night you spent alone, convinced you were worthless, convinced you'd never be enough, convinced the world would be better without you in it. You were actually in the most intensive training program reality offers. And most people don't survive it. Most people break. Most people stay broken. But you didn't. You came through it as something else. And that's what terrifies them. You want to know why people struggle to describe you now? Why their sentences trail off when they try to explain what you've become? It's because you've developed qualities that exist outside their vocabulary. You've become something their language wasn't designed to capture. They're trying to describe quantum physics using cave paintings. You're walking around with something inside you that recognizes patterns they can't see, that hears frequencies they can't detect, that operates on wavelengths their consciousness doesn't reach. You've become a receiver for transmissions most humans live their entire lives without knowing exist. Notice how the people who used to have so much to say about you, so many opinions, so many criticisms, so many suggestions for how you should live, they all went silent. Not gradually, all at once. Like someone cut the power to their judgment factory. They're still there, still watching. But now they're watching the way you watch something you don't want to provoke. The way you watch something that might be dangerous if disturbed. They're watching with questions they're afraid to ask because they already suspect the answers would shatter their understanding of how reality works. Here's what shifted everything. Here's the moment they felt the change and couldn't ignore it anymore. You stopped defending yourself. Not because you couldn't, not because you were tired, but because something in you recognized that defense implies there's an accusation worth responding to. And their framework of judgment simply doesn't apply to you anymore. You stopped explaining your choices because explanations assume their perspective is valid enough to require your energy. You stopped justifying your path because justification means accepting they have authority to evaluate you. The moment you withdrew from their entire system of measurement, that's when they felt it. The fundamental power shift. They've been testing you, haven't they? Sending probes, old connections suddenly reaching out, opportunities that seem too convenient, drama that should pull you back in. All of it designed to see if you'll react according to the old patterns, the old programming, the old version of you that they understood and could control. And what happens? Nothing. You don't engage. You don't defend. You don't attack. You don't even acknowledge the manipulation. You just exist in your frequency, and their frequency can't reach you there. And that dead silence, that absolute non-reaction, tells them everything they feared is true. What you're carrying now, it learned from every single person who ever hurt you. It studied their methods. It absorbed their tactics. It memorized their playbooks. And now it knows exactly how they operate, exactly where their vulnerabilities hide, exactly which buttons they're afraid someone might push. But here's the thing that makes you truly dangerous. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about getting even. This isn't about proving anything. It's about something far more threatening to people who live through control and manipulation. Complete immunity. They can't intimidate you because you've already faced the worst versions of yourself in the mirror. They can't shame you because you've already been to the bottom of that well and found treasure down there. They can't tempt you because you've tasted what the world offers and it all turned to ash in your mouth. They can't threaten you because you've already lost everything. And in that loss, you found the one thing they can never take: your vision. That's the weapon. The ability to see through everything, every mask, every performance, every carefully rehearsed personality, every manufactured emotion. You look at people now and you don't see what they're presenting. You see the machinery underneath. You see the fear driving their confidence. You see the wounds behind their aggression. You see the emptiness beneath their success, and they can feel your sight on them like heat. Being seen that completely. That's a nakedness most people spend their entire lives avoiding, and you're forcing it on them just by existing in their presence. No wonder they're uncomfortable. Something happened to your energy. I'm not talking about mood or attitude. I'm talking about the actual vibration you emit just by being in a space. You used to be adaptable, remember? You could walk into any room and adjust yourself to match the frequency. You could make yourself smaller or larger depending on what was needed. You were praised for it. They called it social intelligence. They called it maturity. They had no idea they were praising you for erasing yourself. But that mechanism broke. The thing that automatically adjusted you to fit others, it stopped functioning. And you thought it was damage at first. You thought years of pain had broken something essential. You mourned the loss of that chameleon ability. Until you realized it didn't break. It evolved. Your frequency didn't disappear. It crystallized. It locked into something so specific, so precise, so undeniably yours that it can't be bent anymore. Now, when you enter a room, you're not adjusting to anyone. They're adjusting to you or they're leaving. No middle ground, no compromise, no blending. Your frequency is too strong now, too defined, too absolutely certain of itself. You've become like a tuning fork, vibrating at a note that either resonates with someone's core or creates such dissonance they physically can't tolerate being near you. And you're fine with both outcomes because you've finally understood the truth. You're not here to harmonize with everyone. You're here to be the frequency that separates real from fake. This thing inside you generates a field that makes deception physically difficult to maintain. People can't lie smoothly around you anymore. Their voices crack, their eyes betray them. Their body language gives them away before they finish speaking. It's not just that you got better at reading people. Your presence creates an environment where lies become harder to sustain. Like they're trying to speak underwater. Like they're trying to run through concrete. The ones who live entirely in performance, entirely in manufactured personas, they can't be around you for more than a few minutes before they start looking for exits. You've become a walking truth detector, a human lie detector, and that specific ability is exactly what makes you dangerous to systems built on deception. You don't have to call anyone out. You don't have to expose or accuse. You just exist in your frequency and watch everything fake start crumbling around you. The weapon isn't what you do. It's what you are. An unchangeable frequency that reality has to bend around because you're done bending for anyone. Let me tell you something nobody will admit. There are people thinking about you right now, running scenarios, not because you threatened them, not because you did anything, but because they can't predict you anymore. And unpredictability is the only thing that truly terrifies systems built on control. They have files on you in their minds, spaces in their consciousness dedicated to figuring out what you might do next. And every scenario they run ends with them losing, every single one, because they're trying to predict your moves using logic that doesn't apply to you anymore. They think in terms of ambition, so they assume you want what they want: power, status, recognition, money. They're preparing for you to climb their ladder, to play their game, to compete for their positions. They're ready for that. They have defenses for that. But you're not climbing anything. You're not playing anything. You're building something entirely different in a dimension they can't perceive. All their preparations are useless. You're not coming for what they have, because what they have stopped mattering to you years ago. What you're carrying doesn't target people. It targets illusions. It targets false structures. It targets the invisible agreements that keep their world stable. You're not attacking individuals. You're attacking the belief systems that allow certain people to have power over others. You're attacking the unspoken rules that keep most humans in cages they can't see. And the brilliant part? You're doing it by simply refusing to honor those agreements anymore. You're not fighting the system. You're declining to participate. And your declination is more threatening than any revolution could ever be. Every time you choose differently, every time you walk away from something they told you to want, every time you refuse to be impressed by what impresses everyone else, you're weakening their structure. You're showing others it's possible to exist outside the program. And that's contagious. That's viral. That's what they fear most. The possibility that your way of being might spread, that others might see you living free and realize they've been living in chains. So they run their scenarios. They try to predict when you'll break, when you'll conform, when you'll come crawling back. And every day you don't, every day you keep walking your path with zero apology, their scenarios get more desperate. They're realizing something that keeps them awake. You're not an anomaly. You're not a glitch. You're not a mistake. You're a preview. You're the prototype. You're the first version of something that's coming for all of them eventually. The thing inside you isn't unique to you. It just activated in you first. And if it activated in you, that means it can activate in others. That means what they thought was safely buried, safely theoretical, safely impossible, it's awake now. It's mobile, it's learning, and you're the proof it works. You feel it sometimes, don't you? That thing moving behind your ribs, not your heart, something else. Something that breathes differently. Something that wakes up when everything else in you is trying to sleep. It moves in the spaces between thoughts. It speaks in the silence between words. It's been building itself scar by scar, memory by memory, until it became something with its own intelligence, its own agenda, its own mission that might not align with what your conscious mind thinks it wants. And that's what scares you sometimes. The realization that you're carrying something more powerful than the you that's carrying it. This thing has memory, not your memory, something older. It remembers things that happened before you existed. It recognizes patterns that span generations. When you meet certain people and instantly distrust them for no logical reason, that's not paranoia. That's this thing recognizing ancestral predators. When you avoid situations that look perfectly safe, that's not anxiety. That's this thing reading frequencies your conscious mind can't detect. When you make choices that confuse everyone, including yourself, that's not confusion. That's this thing navigating using instruments you don't consciously understand. You've noticed how it protects you, haven't you? How doors close before you walk into disasters. How people leave before they can destroy you. How opportunities vanish before they can trap you. You used to call it bad luck. You thought you were cursed. You wondered why nothing worked out the way you planned. Now you're understanding. This thing was steering. It was intervening. It was keeping you off paths that led to comfortable cages and pushing you toward the terrible, beautiful freedom you're experiencing now. It saved you from yourself 100 times. It saved you from a normal life. It saved you from safety, because safety would have killed what you're becoming. The revolution isn't in the streets, it's in your chest. In that space where this thing lives and grows and learns. It's rewiring your instincts. It's rewriting your values. It's rebuilding your understanding of what matters. Money looks different now. Fame looks different now. Love looks different now. Success looks different now. Everything you were taught to want has been systematically devalued in your mind, replaced with something else, something they don't have words for. It's a hunger, but not for food. A love, but not for people. A purpose, but not tied to any career or cause. It's a drive towards something that doesn't exist yet. A pull toward a future that hasn't been written. And here's what'll break your brain if you think about it too long. This thing isn't separate from you. It is you. The real you. The you that existed before they told you who to be. Before they convinced you to hide, to shrink, to apologize for your intensity. Before they taught you your natural state was wrong. What you're carrying isn't something foreign. It's something original that survived everything they tried to kill it with. You're not becoming something new. You're remembering something ancient. They've tried everything to categorize you, diagnose you, label you, explain you using their frameworks. And every attempt fails. Every diagnosis feels incomplete. Every label slides off. Every box they put you in, you exist outside of simultaneously. You're not being difficult. You're not trying to confuse them. What you're carrying doesn't fit their categories because it existed before the categories themselves. This thing inside you operates on frequencies their instruments can't measure. It functions according to laws that aren't in their textbooks. When they try to study you, They're like people trying to understand the ocean by analyzing a single drop of water. They're missing the depth, the pressure, the creatures that live in the dark places, the currents that move beneath everything visible. You're not the drop, you're the ocean. And every time they think they've figured you out, you show them another layer they didn't know existed, another dimension they can't access, another aspect that breaks their models. This is what you've become. This is what you're carrying. This is why they can't look away but can't come closer. This is why you feel so alone but so powerful. This is why nothing fits but everything makes sense. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're not confused. You're exactly what you're supposed to be. Something they weren't ready for. Something they can't control. Something they can't ignore. And every day you wake up and choose to keep being this, to keep carrying this, to keep walking this path that makes no sense to anyone but you. You're proving that their world isn't the only world. Their rules aren't the only rules. Their way isn't the only way. You're living proof that something else is possible. And that possibility, that's the most dangerous weapon of all. Welcome to what you've become. There's no going back. And you wouldn't want to, even if you could.